The sun was setting over the colony on 7. The sky turned orange and purple, and the two moons were starting to show their faces above the distant mountains. It was a beautiful evening, the kind that made people stop their work and look up for a moment. Did not stop to look at the sky. He was walking along the irrigation channels at the edge of the settlement, checking the water flow to the crop fields. This was his job every evening. It was boring work, but it was important. Without water, the crops would die. Without crops, the colony would starve. He was 16 years old, thin but strong from years of farm work. His hands were rough, his skin was tanned from the sun, and his dark hair was always messy no matter how many times his mother told him to comb it. He lived with his mother in a small house near the eastern fields. His father had died 3 years ago in a farming accident, and since then had taken over most of the heavy work. The colony was small. Only about 200 people lived here, all of them farmers and workers trying to build a new life on this distant planet. Earth was far away, almost impossible to imagine. Most of the people here had never been there. They were born on colony ships or on other settlement worlds. Earth was just a story, a legend of the place where humans came from long ago. Finished checking the last irrigation gate and started walking back toward the settlement. The forest began just 50 meters from where he stood. It was thick and dark, filled with alien trees that grew twice as tall as anything on Earth. The colony rules were clear. Never go into the forest after dark. There were creatures in there that could kill a grown man. Had never broken that rule. He was not brave or stupid. He was just a farm boy who wanted to live a quiet life. That was when he saw the light. It came from above, bright and fast. At first he thought it was a shooting star, but it was too big, too close. It was a ship, and it was on fire. The flames trailed behind it like a burning tail as it screamed across the sky, watched with wide eyes as it disappeared over the tree line. Then came the explosion. The ground shook under his feet. Birds flew up from the forest in a great cloud of wings and screams. A column of black smoke began to rise from deep within the woods. Stood frozen for a moment. His heart was beating fast. Every part of his brain was telling him to run back to the settlement and tell the adults. That was the smart thing to do. That was the safe thing to do. But then he thought about the ship. Someone had been inside that ship. Someone might be hurt, might be dying right now while he stood here thinking about safety. He looked back at the settlement. The lights were coming on in the houses. Someone would have seen the crash. They would send a rescue team. But how long would that take? An hour, 2 hours. By then, whoever was in that ship might be dead. Made a decision. It was not a smart decision. Looking back later, he would wonder what had possessed him to do such a foolish thing. But in that moment, it felt like the only thing he could do. He ran to his father's old tool shed near the irrigation pump. Inside, hanging on the wall, was his father's plasma knife. It was not a weapon, not really. It was a farming tool used for cutting through thick roots and hard soil. But it was sharp, and it was better than nothing. Grabbed the knife and ran into the forest. The trees closed around him like a dark mouth. The light from the setting sun could not reach through the thick canopy. Had to use the glow from the plasma knife to see where he was going. His feet crunched on dead leaves and strange alien plants. The air smelled like smoke. He followed the smell, moving deeper and deeper into the woods. His mother would be so angry when she found out. If she found out. If he made it back alive. After 20 minutes of walking, he found the crash site. The ship was small, maybe the size of a shuttle. It was buried nose first into the ground, surrounded by broken trees and burning debris. The metal was twisted and torn. Strange symbols were painted on the side, symbols that had never seen before. This was not a human ship. For a moment, hesitated. Alien ships meant alien people. Humans had met other species in the galaxy, but most of those meetings had not gone well. Aliens generally looked down on humans, considered them primitive and weak. Some aliens were dangerous. Some were hostile. but someone was crying inside that ship. The sound was soft, barely audible over the crackling of the flames, but heard it clearly. It was a sound of pain and fear. It was the sound of someone who needed help. He climbed over the debris and found an opening in the side of the ship. The metal was hot, burning his hands as he pulled himself through. Inside, the ship was filled with smoke and sparks. Emergency lights flashed red in the darkness. He found her near the front of the ship. She was young, maybe his age or a little older. Her skin was silver, shimmering like metal in the dim light. Her hair was white, floating around her head like a cloud. Her eyes were closed, but he could see they were large, larger than human eyes, and her leg was trapped under a heavy piece of equipment that had fallen during the crash. She was alive. He could see her chest rising and falling, but she was badly hurt. Purple blood was pooling beneath her, and her silver skin was turning gray in places. Knelt beside her and tried to lift the equipment. It was too heavy. He pushed and pulled, but it would not move. The girl moaned in pain. He activated his plasma knife and began cutting through the metal. The knife was designed for roots and soil, not spaceship parts, but it worked slowly. Sparks flew as he cut. The heat was intense. The girl's eyes opened. They were violet, bright and beautiful even in the darkness of the crashed ship. She looked at with confusion and fear. Her mouth moved, but no sound came out. Then a small device on her collar crackled to life. A voice came out, weak and broken by static. Who are you?" "My name is," he said, still cutting through the metal. "I am here to help you." "Human," she whispered, and there was something strange in her voice. Not hatred or fear, but something like wonder. "A human came for me." "Yes," he said simply. He did not understand why she was surprised. Someone had crashed. Someone needed help. What else was there to do? The equipment finally came loose, pulled it away from her leg. The injury was bad. The bone was broken and she was losing blood quickly. "Can you walk?" he asked. She shook her head. Tears were running down her silver cheeks, leaving dark trails. I cannot move. Please, you must leave me." "I am not leaving you." "You do not understand." Her voice was desperate now. "They are hunting me. They sent something after me, a beast. It will find me. It will kill anyone near me. You must go." Looked at her for a long moment. A beast. Hunters. This was not just a crash. Someone had attacked this girl, had tried to kill her, and now something was coming to finish the job. He should have been afraid. He should have listened to her and run away. But when he looked at her face, at her fear and her pain and her loneliness, he could not make himself leave. "What is your name?" he asked instead. She blinked, surprised by the question. "My name is." He repeated, "I am going to carry you out of here, and I am not going to let anything hurt you, okay?" She stared at him like he was insane. Maybe he was, but he reached down and lifted her in his arms anyway. She was lighter than he expected, and she cried out in pain from the movement. "I am sorry," he said, "but we have to move." He carried her out of the ship and into the dark forest. Behind them, the ship continued to burn, sending smoke up into the night sky like a signal fire. Somewhere in the darkness, something began to howl. The howl echoed through the forest like a warning from death itself. It was not the sound of any animal had ever heard. It was deeper, angrier, and it seemed to come from everywhere at once. Grabbed his shirt with her silver fingers. Her grip was weak but desperate. "It is here," she whispered. "The Ravager, it found me." Did not stop moving. He kept walking through the dark forest, holding the alien girl in his arms, trying to put as much distance as possible between them and the burning ship. His plasma knife was attached to his belt, glowing softly in the darkness. "What is a Ravager?" he asked, keeping his voice low. "A hunting beast," said. Her voice was shaking. "The Raiders use them to track and kill targets. They are bioengineered, created in laboratories for one purpose only: to hunt, to kill. Nothing can stop them." "Nothing." Military squads need special weapons and training to kill just one, and even then soldiers die. She looked up at him with her violet eyes, and there was pain and guilt in her expression. You are just a human, just a boy. You cannot fight it. Please leave me and run. Save yourself. Did not answer, he just kept walking. The ground began to slope upward. They were moving toward the rocky hills that bordered this section of the forest. If he could find a cave or a narrow passage, maybe they could hide. Maybe the beast would lose their trail. But even as he thought this, he knew it was foolish. A creature designed for hunting would not lose their trail so easily. Another howl split the night, closer now, much closer. Started to run. Cried out in pain as her broken leg bounced with each step. Put me down, she begged. Put me down and run. I am slowing you down. Be quiet, said, breathing hard. I need to concentrate. He could hear it now. Not just the howls, but the sound of something crashing through the forest behind them. Trees were breaking. Bushes were being torn apart. Whatever was chasing them, it was big, very big. Reached the rocky outcrop he had been aiming for. It was a wall of stone, maybe 10 meters high, with large boulders scattered at its base. There was no cave, no passage, no escape route, just a dead end. He had made a mistake. He had run the wrong way. He put down gently, leaning her against one of the boulders. She was pale now, her silver skin almost gray. She had lost too much blood. You should have left me, she said, her voice barely a whisper. Now we will both die. Maybe, said. He pulled the plasma knife from his belt and activated it. The blade hummed with energy, glowing bright orange in the darkness. But maybe not. The crashing sound stopped. The forest became silent. Then the beast emerged from the trees. Had never seen anything like it. The Ravager was massive, standing nearly 3 meters tall at the shoulder. It walked on 6 legs, each one ending in claws as long as forearm. Its body was covered in thick armor plates, black and shiny like the shell of a beetle. Its head was long and narrow, with no eyes that could see, but a mouth filled with teeth that dripped with something green and smoking. Venom. It moved slowly now, confident that its prey was trapped. A low growl rumbled in its throat as it approached. Was crying behind him. I am sorry, she said. I am so sorry. You should not have to die for me. Did not look back at her. His eyes were fixed on the beast. His hand was steady on the plasma knife, even though his heart was pounding so hard he could hear it in his ears. My father died when I was 13, he said quietly. A machine broke down in the fields and crushed him. I was there. I saw it happen, and I could not do anything to save him. The Ravager took another step closer. Its growl grew louder. I promised myself that day, continued, that I would never stand by and do nothing again. If someone needs help, I help them, even if it kills me, even if it is stupid, even if there is no chance of winning. He raised the plasma knife and stepped forward to meet the beast. The Ravager lunged. It was fast, impossibly fast for something so large. One moment it was 5 meters away, the next it was on top of him. Barely had time to dive to the side. The creature's claws scraped across the boulder where he had been standing, sending sparks flying. Rolled and came up on his feet. He slashed at the beast's leg with his plasma knife. The blade bit into the armored hide but barely scratched the surface. The Ravager did not even seem to notice. It spun around and swung one massive leg at him, tried to dodge, but he was too slow. The blow caught him in the chest and sent him flying backward. He crashed into a tree and fell to the ground, gasping for air. His ribs were on fire. Something was broken inside him. He could taste blood in his mouth. The Ravager approached slowly again, savoring the moment. It knew he was hurt. It knew he was weak. It was enjoying this. Forced himself to stand. His legs were shaking. His vision was blurry, but he raised the plasma knife again. Come on, he whispered. Come on, you ugly thing. The beast attacked again. This time was ready. Instead of trying to dodge, he ran straight at the creature. It was so surprised by this that it hesitated for just a moment, and in that moment slid under its body and drove his plasma knife upward into its belly. The armor there was thinner. The blade sank in deep. The Ravager screamed. It was a terrible sound, high and piercing. It thrashed wildly, throwing across the clearing. He hit the ground hard and lost his grip on the knife. It was still buried in the creature's stomach. Purple blood was pouring from the wound now, but the Ravager was not dead. It was not even dying. It was just angry. It turned toward with murder in its movements. He could feel its rage like heat from a fire. He had heard it. He had actually heard it, and now it was going to make him pay. Looked around desperately for a weapon, for anything he could use. There was nothing, just rocks and dead leaves and darkness. The Ravager charged, reached down and grabbed a stone the size of his fist. It was stupid, it was useless, but it was all he had. At the last moment, he threw himself to the side. The beast's jaws snapped shut on empty air, missing his head by centimeters. Swung the rock with all his strength and smashed it against the creature's face. The rock shattered, but so did something else. One of the beast's teeth broke off and fell to the ground. The Ravager stumbled, confused and in pain. Did not hesitate. He scrambled up onto the creature's back, grabbing at the armor plates for grip. The beast bucked and twisted, trying to throw him off, but held on. He climbed higher, pulling himself toward the head. The plasma knife was still stuck in the creature's belly, out of reach, but the broken tooth was still in his hand, long and sharp and dripping with venom. Reached the head of the beast. He could feel it trying to shake him off, could feel its rage in every movement. With one hand he grabbed onto a ridge of armor. With the other, he raised the broken tooth high. The Ravager had no eyes that he could see, but there was a soft spot at the base of its skull where the head connected to the body, a gap in the armor. Drove the tooth into that gap with all the strength he had left. The beast screamed again, but this time the sound was different, weaker, more desperate. It stumbled forward, its legs giving out one by one. Held on, pushing the tooth deeper, feeling the venom burn his hands as it leaked from the base. Finally, the Ravager collapsed. It hit the ground with a thunderous crash, its massive body twitching and then going still. Purple blood pooled around it, soaking into the forest floor. Lay on top of the dead creature, unable to move. His body was broken. His hands were burned. He was bleeding from a dozen wounds he could not even feel anymore. But he was alive, and the beast was dead. He rolled off the body and fell to the ground beside it. The sky was visible through a gap in the trees, and he could see the stars. They were beautiful. He had never really noticed before how beautiful they were. His voice reached him from far away. He could hear her dragging herself across the ground, could hear her crying. Please, please be alive. He wanted to answer her. He wanted to tell her that it was okay, that the beast was dead, that she was safe now. But his mouth would not work. His eyes were closing. The last thing he felt before the darkness took him was her hand, cold and silver, gripping his own. Do not die, she was saying. Please do not die. Help is coming, just hold on. He wanted to hold on. He tried to hold on. But his body had nothing left to give. The warship descended through the clouds like a god coming down to Earth. It was enormous, nearly 1/2 kilometer long, covered in silver metal that reflected the morning sun. The people of the human colony watched from their homes, afraid and amazed at the same time. They had never seen a ship so large, so beautiful, so terrifying. The colony had no weapons that could threaten such a vessel. They had nothing but farming tools and determination. If the aliens had come to destroy them, there was nothing they could do to stop it. But the ship did not attack. It stopped above the forest and hung there in the air, silent and still. Then a smaller craft separated from the bottom of the warship and descended into the trees. Chief stood at the front of the landing craft, his hands clasped behind his back. He was old by standards, over 400 years, and his silver skin had the weathered look of ancient stone. His eyes were violet like all, but darker, colder, filled with centuries of wisdom and war. He was the leader of the High Council, one of the most powerful beings in the known galaxy, and his daughter had disappeared. Her emergency beacon had activated hours ago, signaling a crash on this remote human world. Had brought his fastest warship, pushing the engines beyond their limits, praying to gods he did not believe in that he would not be too late. "We are approaching the crash site, Chief," said one of his officers. "Sensors detect one life sign and one human life sign, both very weak." "And the Ravager?" asked. The officer hesitated. "Dead, sir. According to our readings, it is dead." Turned to look at him. "Dead. The Raider's beast is dead." "Yes, sir. We are also detecting a human settlement about 3 kilometers to the east. It appears to be a farming colony, primitive technology, no military capability." Said nothing. He turned back to face forward, his expression unreadable. The landing craft touched down in a clearing near the crashed shuttle. Was the first one out, followed by a team of soldiers and medics. They moved through the forest quickly, following the signals from the beacon. They found the scene at the rocky outcrop. Stopped walking. His soldiers stopped behind him. For a long moment, no one moved. The Ravager lay dead on the ground, its massive body already beginning to decay. Purple blood covered the rocks and the leaves and the earth. And beside the beast, half covered in that same blood, were 2 figures lying next to each other. His daughter. She was alive but barely conscious, her broken leg wrapped in torn pieces of cloth. She was holding the hand of a young human male, a boy who appeared to be dying. The boy was covered in wounds. His chest was crushed. His hands were burned. He had been torn and beaten and broken in a dozen ways, and yet somehow he was still breathing. "Father," whispered when she saw approach. Her voice was weak, but her eyes were bright with tears. "Father, you have to help him, please. He saved my life." Looked at the human boy, then at the dead Ravager, then back at his daughter. "Explain," he said. "The Raiders attacked my ship. They sent the Ravager to hunt me. I crashed here and he found me, this human boy. He pulled me from the wreckage. He carried me through the forest, and when the Ravager came..." She started to cry. "He fought it, Father. He fought it alone with nothing but a farming tool, and he won." Walked slowly around the scene, studying the evidence. The plasma knife still buried in the Ravager's belly. The broken tooth driven into the base of its skull. The patterns of blood on the ground, telling the story of the fight. He had sent military squads to hunt Ravagers before, trained soldiers with advanced weapons and armor. Many of them had died. The ones who survived had nightmares for years afterward. And this boy, this primitive human child, had killed one alone, with a farming tool. "Impossible," said one of his officers. "The readings must be wrong. Perhaps there was another fighter who escaped." "There is no other fighter," said firmly. "I watched him do it. I watched him stand between me and that beast with nothing but a knife. He should have run. I told him to run, but he refused." Looked at the boy again. His breathing was getting weaker. He would die within minutes without treatment. The chief medic approached cautiously. "Sir, the patient needs immediate attention. She has lost a significant amount of blood and her leg requires surgery. We should transport her to the ship at once." "And the human?" asked. The medic hesitated. "Sir, our medical supplies are calibrated for physiology. We could try to treat him, but human biology is quite different. It would require adjusting our equipment, taking time away from treating your daughter, and there is no guarantee." "He is dying because he saved my daughter's life," said quietly. The medic fell silent. Squeezed the boy's hand. "Father, please, I know he is just a human. I know we do not help their kind, but he is different. He did not care that I was. He did not care that saving me might kill him. He just saw someone who needed help and he helped." stood still for a long moment. The other watched him, waiting for his decision. They all knew the rules, did not waste resources on primitive species, looked after their own. But Az looked at the scene before him, his daughter alive, the monster dead, and the broken human boy who had made it all possible. He found himself questioning those rules for the first time in centuries. "Treat them both," he said. The medic blinked. "Sir, you heard me. Treat the human as you would treat any. Use whatever resources you need. Adjust whatever equipment you must. If he dies because of our incompetence, I will hold you personally responsible." The medic bowed quickly and called for his team. Within minutes, both and the human boy were on medical stretchers, being carried toward the landing craft. Remained at the scene, studying the dead Ravager. His chief of security approached him carefully. "Sir, I must say something." "Speak." "This human, what he did should not be possible. Ravagers are bioengineered killing machines. They have hunted and killed warriors from a dozen different species, including our own. And this boy, with no training, no weapons, no armor, he killed one. It is disturbing." Nodded slowly. "Yes, it is." "What does it mean?" Was quiet for a long time. He thought about all the reports he had read about humans over the years. A primitive species, weak, short-lived, barely capable of interstellar travel. They had ignored them for decades, considered them irrelevant in the grand scheme of galactic politics. But this boy had fought a Ravager. And he had won. "It means," said finally, "that we may have made a serious mistake about humanity." The landing craft lifted off and carried them back to the warship, was taken to the medical bay, where doctors worked to save her leg. The human boy was placed in a separate chamber, where a team of specialists struggled to adapt their technology to his alien biology. Stood outside the boy's room, watching through the window as the doctors worked. The boy's heart had stopped twice during the flight. Both times they had brought him back. His body was fighting to survive with the same stubborn determination that had driven him to fight the Ravager. "He should be dead," one of the doctors said. "By all logic, he should have died 10 times over, but his body keeps fighting. It refuses to stop." Watch the boy's chest rise and fall, rise and fall. Humans lived such short lives, 80 years, 100 at most. That was nothing, a brief flash in the darkness of time. And yet in that brief flash, this human child had done something that trained soldiers could not do. He had stared death in the face and refused to look away. The chief of security appeared at his side. "Sir, we have identified the boy. His name is, he is 16 years old, the son of a farmer who died 3 years ago. He lives in that human colony with his mother. No military training, no combat experience, just a farm boy." Just a farm boy. Closed his eyes and shook his head slowly. "Prepare a communication to the human settlement," he said. "Tell them their son is alive. Tell them he is under my protection. And tell them." He paused, searching for the right words. "Tell them I wish to speak with them. There are things we must discuss." The officer bowed and left to carry out the order. Remained at the window, watching the human boy fight for his life. For the first time in centuries, the chief of the High Council did not know what the future would hold. But he knew with absolute certainty that it had changed forever. Opened his eyes and saw stars. Not the stars of 7, the ones he had watched every night from his family's farm. These stars were different. They were moving slowly past a large window, drifting like snow in a gentle wind. And they were close, much closer than stars should ever be. He blinked and tried to sit up. His body responded, but slowly, as if he had been sleeping for a very long time. There was no pain. That was strange. He remembered pain. He remembered lots of pain. "Please do not move too quickly." The voice came from beside him, turned his head and found himself looking at. She was sitting in a chair next to his bed, her silver skin glowing softly in the dim light of the room. Her white hair was clean now, falling in waves around her shoulders. Her violet eyes were watching him with an expression he could not quite understand. Was it concern? Wonder? Something else? Her leg was wrapped in some kind of glowing bandage, but she looked healthy, much better than the last time he had seen her. "You are awake," she said, and there was relief in her voice. "The doctors were not sure when you would wake, or if you would wake at all." Looked around the room. It was unlike anything he had ever seen. The walls were smooth and white, covered in soft lights that pulsed gently like a heartbeat. Strange machines surrounded his bed, making quiet humming sounds. Everything looked expensive. Everything looked alien. "Where am I?" he asked. His voice was rough, like he had not used it in days. "You are aboard my father's warship," said. "The pride of we are in orbit above your planet." A warship. He was on an alien warship. Tried to process this information, but his brain felt slow and foggy. "How long have I been asleep?" 3 days. 3 days. His mother must be worried sick. She probably thought he was dead. He tried to sit up again and this time reached out to help him. Her hands were cool against his skin, gentle and careful. "Your mother has been contacted," she said, as if reading his thoughts. "She knows you are alive and safe. She knows you are with us. My father has promised to return you to your colony as soon as you are well enough to travel." Relaxed slightly. At least his mother knew. At least she was not spending these days in grief. "The beast," he said suddenly, remembering. "The Ravager, did I kill it? I remember fighting it, but then everything went dark." Was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, her voice was soft. "Yes, you killed it." There was something in the way she said those words, something heavy. Looked at her, confused. "What is wrong?" She shook her head slowly. "Nothing is wrong, it is just, do you understand what you did? Do you understand how impossible it was? It was trying to kill you. I had to stop it." "Ravagers are the most dangerous hunting creatures in the galaxy," said. "They are created in laboratories designed to be perfect killers. My people use entire military squads to fight them. Soldiers with advanced weapons and years of training. And they still lose. They still die." She leaned forward, her violet eyes searching his face. "You are a human, a farm boy from a primitive colony. You had no weapons, no armor, no training, and you killed a Ravager alone. Do you understand how incredible that is? How impossible?" Thought about the fight. He remembered the fear, the pain, the desperate struggle. He remembered being thrown around like a toy. He remembered driving the broken tooth into the creature's skull. "I was not trying to be incredible," he said honestly. "I was just trying to keep you alive." Stared at him for a long moment, and then she did something unexpected. She laughed. It was a soft sound, gentle and surprised, as if she had not laughed in a very long time. "That is what makes it incredible," she said. "You did not do it for glory or for reward. You did it because someone needed help. You almost died because someone you did not know was in danger." She reached out and took his hand in hers. Her fingers were cool and smooth, her grip gentle. "I have lived for over 80 years, she said quietly. "In all that time, I have never met anyone like you. My people are logical. We make decisions based on calculation, on probability, on expected outcomes. You had no logical reason to save me. Every calculation said you should run, should save yourself, but you did not." Looked at their joined hands, her silver skin against his brown skin. Two species that had never had anything to do with each other, brought together by chance and violence and a choice made in the dark. "My father wants to meet you," said. Felt his stomach tighten. "Your father?" "Chief, the leader of the High Council, the most powerful person in our civilization." She smiled at his expression. "Do not worry, he is not going to hurt you, but he has questions, many questions." She helped him out of the bed. His legs were weak, but they held him. He was wearing simple clothes, soft and clean, nothing like the torn and bloody things he had been wearing during the fight. Someone had cleaned him, dressed him, taken care of him while he slept. Led him through the corridors of the ship. Everything was beautiful and strange. The walls curved in ways that did not seem possible. The lights changed color as they walked, shifting from white to blue to soft purple. Other passed them, tall and silver and silent, watching with expressions he could not read. Some looked curious, some looked disturbed, a few looked almost afraid. "Why are they looking at me like that?" asked. "They are not sure what to think of you," said. "You are the first human most of them have ever seen up close, and you did something that none of them thought a human could do. You have complicated their view of your species." They reached a large door at the end of a long hallway. It was made of dark metal, covered in complex symbols that seemed to glow from within. "This is the command chamber," said. "My father is inside." She squeezed his hand. "Be honest with him. He respects honesty, and he is very good at knowing when someone is lying." She pressed her hand against a panel beside the door. It slid open with a soft hiss. The room beyond was enormous. Windows lined every wall, showing the stars and the curve of 7 below. In the center of the room, seated in a chair that looked like a throne, was the oldest had ever seen. "Chief." He did not rise when entered. He simply watched, his dark violet eyes tracking every movement, every breath. His silver skin was weathered like old stone, marked by centuries of life. His hands rested on the arms of his chair, still and patient. Stayed by the door, walked forward alone. He stopped a few meters from the chief and did not know what to do. Should he bow? Should he kneel? Should he wait for permission to speak? "Come closer," said. His voice was deep and quiet, the kind of voice that was used to being obeyed. Walked closer until he was standing directly in front of the ancient. Studied him for a long time. Could feel those eyes examining him, analyzing him, trying to understand him. It was uncomfortable. It was terrifying. "My daughter tells me you are a farmer," said finally. "Yes, sir." "You grow food, you work the land, you check irrigation systems." "Yes, sir." "And yet you killed a ravager with a farming tool." Did not know how to respond to that, so he said nothing. Leaned forward in his chair. "I have been alive for 400 years. I have seen wars that lasted centuries. I have watched species rise and fall. I have met warriors and kings and monsters, and in all that time I have never seen anything quite like what you did." He paused, his eyes never leaving his face. "The question that has been burning in my mind for 3 days is simple. Why?" "Why what, sir?" "Why did you fight? You could have escaped. Logic dictated that you should. The beast was not hunting you. It wanted only my daughter. You could have run back to your settlement and lived. No one would have blamed you. No one would have even known. Why did you choose to fight?" Thought about the question. It was a good question, a reasonable question. And yet the answer seemed so obvious to him that he was surprised the chief even had to ask. "Because she was scared," he said simply. "She was hurt, and she was alone. That is all I needed to know." Was silent for a long moment. "That is all you needed to know," he repeated slowly. "Yes, sir." "You risked your life, suffered terrible wounds, and nearly died, because a stranger was scared and alone." Nodded. "Is that not enough?" Chief leaned back in his chair. His expression had changed. The cold calculation was still there, but there was something else now, something almost like wonder. "No," he said quietly. "For my people that would not be enough. We require logic. We require calculation. We require expected outcomes that justify the risk." He looked at with new eyes, as if seeing him for the first time. "But for you it was enough. And that, young human, is perhaps the most terrifying thing I have ever encountered." Did not understand why his answer was terrifying, but he could see that something had shifted in the ancient's mind. Some wall had crumbled. Some new understanding had taken its place. And outside the window, the stars continued their slow dance around the planet where a human farm boy had done the impossible. Chief did not speak for a very long time after his answer. The command chamber was silent except for the soft hum of the ship's engines and the distant whisper of stars sliding past the windows. Stood still, waiting. He did not know what to expect. He did not know if he had said the right thing or the wrong thing. All he knew was that he had told the truth, and now the most powerful being in civilization was staring at him like he was a puzzle that refused to be solved. Finally rose from his chair. It was a slow movement, careful and deliberate. The ancient walked to the window and looked out at the stars. His reflection stared back at him from the glass, silver and old and tired. For centuries, he said quietly, my people have believed that logic is the highest virtue. We make every decision based on calculation. We weigh risks and rewards. We do not act unless the probability of success justifies the cost. It is how we have survived. It is how we have conquered. It is how we have become one of the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy. He turned to face, but it is also how we have become cold. We do not form attachments easily. We do not sacrifice ourselves for others. We look at the universe and see only numbers, only equations, only outcomes to be optimized. He walked closer too, and for the first time there was something almost gentle in his expression. When my daughter's ship was attacked, I sent rescue vessels immediately. But I did not go myself, not at first. I calculated the probability that she had survived. I calculated the risk to myself if I left my duties. I made logical decisions, one after another, while my daughter bled in a crashed shuttle on a strange world. His voice grew heavy with something that might have been shame. You did not calculate. You did not weigh risks. You saw someone in trouble and you ran toward the danger without a second thought. You fought a monster that should have killed you in seconds. You refused to give up even when your body was broken and your death was certain. Stopped directly in front of. They were close now, close enough that could see the ancient patterns in the chief's weathered skin. Do you know what my people call humans? Asked. Shook his head. Primitives, children, insects. We have dismissed your species for decades. You only achieved interstellar travel within the last century. Your technology is crude. You are laughably short. By every measure we use to judge civilizations, you are beneath our notice. He paused, but you killed a ravager with a farming tool. Returned to his throne and sat down heavily. He looked older now, more tired, but there was a fire in his eyes that had not been there before. I have made 3 decisions, he said. I will share them with you now. Waited, his heart beating fast. First, said, I am declaring a formal debt of honor between House and your human colony on this planet. This means that your colony is under my protection. Any who threaten your people threaten me. I will provide your settlement with technology, with resources, with trade agreements that will transform your lives. Your colony will no longer be a forgotten outpost on the edge of nowhere. It will be known throughout the galaxy as a place under protection. His eyes went wide. He thought of his mother, of the other farmers, of the 200 people who struggled every day just to survive. Their lives were about to change forever. Second, continued, I am granting you the title of Friend of. You are the first human in history to receive this honor. It means that you are welcome on any world. You are protected by law. Any crime against you is a crime against our civilization itself. You will carry this title for the rest of your life, and your children will inherit it after you. Friend of did not even fully understand what that meant, but he could tell from the way gasped behind him that it was significant, very significant. And third, said, his voice growing more serious, I am opening diplomatic channels with your Earth government. For too long we have ignored humanity. We have considered you irrelevant in the grand scheme of galactic politics. This ends today. He leaned forward in his chair, his dark violet eyes burning with intensity. Any species that breeds warriors like you deserves attention. Any civilization that produces individuals who will stand against impossible odds for strangers deserves respect. We do not know what else humanity is capable of. We do not know what you might become in another 100 years, another 1,000 years. But we have learned something important in these last few days. He paused, letting the words settle in the air. We have learned that we underestimated you, and that is a mistake we will not make again. The command chamber fell silent, stood there, overwhelmed by what he was hearing. He had gone into that forest just wanting to help someone who was hurt. He had fought the beast just wanting to protect someone who was scared. And now, because of those simple choices, the entire relationship between humanity and one of the galaxy's greatest powers was changing. I do not know what to say, admitted. You do not need to say anything, said. You have already said everything that matters through your actions. He rose again and extended his hand toward. You saved my daughter's life. You showed me something about humanity that I was too blind to see. For that, I thank you. Reached out and clasped the chief's hand. The silver skin was cool and smooth, the grip firm and strong despite the chief's age. You are welcome, said simply. Smiled. It was a small smile, barely visible, but it transformed his ancient face into something almost warm. Go now, he said. My daughter wishes to spend more time with you before we return you to your colony, and I have much work to do. Changing the policies of an entire civilization is not a simple task. Bowed awkwardly. He still was not sure what the proper greeting was and turned to leave. Was waiting for him by the door, her violet eyes bright with emotion. They walked together through the corridors of the great warship. Neither of them spoke at first. There was too much to process, too much to understand. Finally broke the silence. You changed everything, she said quietly. Because of you, your people and my people will finally meet as equals. Because of you, my father sees humanity with new eyes. Because of you, I am alive. She stopped walking and turned to face him. Her silver skin glowed softly in the light of the corridor, and her white hair floated around her face like a cloud. I do not know how to thank you, she said. I do not have words large enough for what you did. Thought about all the things that had happened. The crash, the beast, the fight, the pain, and through it all the simple belief that had driven him forward. Someone needed help and he could help them. You do not need to thank me, he said. Just be safe, be happy, that is enough. Smiled at him, and in that smile saw something he had never expected to see. Hope. Hope for the future. Hope for what humanity and the might build together. I think, she said softly, that I would like to visit your colony sometime, if that is acceptable. Smiled back. I think my mother would like that. She makes very good food. Laughed, and the sound echoed through the corridors of the warship like music. Later that day, the ship began its descent back to the surface of 7, stood at a window and watched his world grow larger below him. The forests, the fields, the small cluster of buildings that was his home. He thought about his father, who had taught him to always help others. He thought about his mother, who was probably cooking dinner right now, waiting for him to come home. He thought about the 200 people in his colony who were about to discover that the galaxy had finally noticed them. And somewhere behind him, in the observation deck of the great warship, Chief and his daughter stood together, watching the human world with new eyes. Do you think they are ready? Asked her father. Humanity, are they ready for what is coming? Considered the question for a long moment. I do not know, he admitted. But I know this. They have something that we lack, something we lost long ago in our pursuit of logic and efficiency. What is that? Heart, the chief said simply. They have heart. The warship settled gently on the ground near the human colony. The ramp lowered and stepped out into the sunlight of his. His mother was there, tears streaming down her face, running toward him with open arms. The other colonists stood behind her, staring at the massive alien ship with awe and fear and wonder. Hugged his mother tight and looked back at the warship one last time. was standing at the top of the ramp, watching him with a smile on her face. She raised her hand in farewell, raised his hand in return. And across the galaxy the word began to spread. The humans were not primitives. The humans were not children. The humans were something else entirely. Something that the galaxy had never seen before. Something worth respecting. Something worth fearing. Because if a single human farm boy could kill a ravager with nothing but a farming tool and the refusal to let a stranger die alone, then what might humanity accomplish when they truly turned their attention to the stars? The galaxy was about to find out.